The massive alien Falcon screeched as it sensed the approaching enemy ships through the void. Lieutenant Marcus Chen watched in awe as the bird's damaged crystalline eyes glowed with an impossible light, revealing the hidden attack formation that no human technology could detect. The military commanders who had once dismissed the creature as worthless now stood speechless as it projected a shimmering map of hyperspace pathways never before seen by human eyes. "They're coming from Sector 7, Marcus whispered, his hand gently stroking the Falcon's iridescent feathers. "And thanks to you, we'll be ready." The Falcon turned its head toward Marcus, the only human it would allow to touch it, a bond forged through months of patient healing when everyone else had given up. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Lieutenant Marcus Chen trudged across the battlefield, his combat boots sinking into the alien mud with each step. The air smelled of ozone and burnt metal, remnants of the aerial battle that had raged overhead just hours before. Smoke still curled from the wreckage of both human and enemy ships scattered across the purple-tinged landscape. Most of his squadron had already returned to base, but something had caught his attention on his scanner, a faint life sign pulsing irregularly from behind a cluster of crystalline rock formations. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and Marcus glanced up at the swirling orange clouds. Another storm was coming, the third this week on this god-forsaken moon they'd been fighting over for nearly 8 months. He should head back, report to Colonel Winters, get some food and rest. But the life sign continued to pulse, and something about its rhythm seemed different from the Arcturian signatures he'd grown familiar with. His curiosity won out. Adjusting his oxygen filter, Marcus changed course toward the signal. His hand rested on his sidearm as he approached the rocks, prepared for an ambush despite the scanner's assurance that only one life form remained. As he rounded the largest formation, he froze. There, sprawled across the ground, was one of the most magnificent creatures he had ever seen. At first glance, it resembled a falcon, if falcons grew to the size of a small shuttlecraft and possessed feathers that shimmered with bioluminescence. It was one of the Arcturians' biological weapons, a genetically engineered aerial hunter used against human forces. Marcus had seen them in battle briefings and from a distance during air raids, but never this close. The creature's massive wingspan, easily 20 feet from tip to tip, was partially folded, one wing bent at an unnatural angle. Its chest heaved with labored breathing, and a low, keening sound escaped its curved beak. But what drew Marcus's attention most were its eyes, or what remained of them. Where there should have been the legendary crystalline orbs that gave these creatures their deadly accuracy, there were only shattered fragments, like broken glass embedded in the sockets. "You've seen better days," Marcus muttered, keeping his distance. The Falcon's head jerked toward the sound of his voice, and it let out a piercing shriek that sent Marcus stumbling backward. Despite its injuries, the creature was still dangerous. These Falcons had been responsible for taking down dozens of human craft, their incredible eyesight allowing them to target pilots through cockpit shields with lethal precision. Protocol was clear: enemy biologicals were to be terminated if captured. The Falcon was a weapon, nothing more. Marcus raised his pulse rifle, sighting down the barrel at the creature's head. One clean shot would end its suffering. The Falcon seemed to sense his intention. It went still, its breathing shallow, those shattered eyes somehow finding him despite their ruined state. It made no move to defend itself. Marcus's finger trembled on the trigger. "Damn it," he whispered, lowering his weapon. He couldn't do it. Injured and blind, the creature posed no threat. And something about the quiet dignity with which it faced death stirred something in Marcus he thought he'd lost months ago on this endless campaign. Instead, he activated his comm unit. "Chen to base. I've located a downed Arcturian Falcon, approximately 500 meters southeast of my last position, requesting extraction." Static crackled before a response came through. "Acknowledged, Lieutenant. Hostiles in the area?" "Negative. Just the Falcon. It's injured but alive." A pause. "Terminate and return to base. Storms approaching your sector." Marcus looked at the Falcon again, watched as it struggled to rise before collapsing back onto the ground. "Request permission to bring it in. Creature has valuable intelligence potential." Another, longer pause. Negative, Lieutenant. Those things are too dangerous. Colonel's orders are clear. Marcus switched off his comm without responding. He was already on thin ice with command after questioning tactics in their last engagement. One more act of insubordination might cost him his rank, but he couldn't leave the Falcon to die slowly in the coming storm. Approaching cautiously, he removed his outer tactical jacket and slowly extended it toward the creature. The Falcon hissed, its head swiveling to track his movements despite its blindness. It could still sense him somehow, perhaps through sound or some other means. "Easy," Marcus murmured. "I'm not going to hurt you." The Falcon lunged suddenly, its massive beak snapping at the air inches from his hand. Marcus didn't flinch. "Yeah, I get it. You're tough. But you're not going anywhere on your own, and that storm will kill you." Working slowly, he managed to drape the jacket over the Falcon's head, calming it slightly as darkness enveloped its ruined eyes. It still trembled under his touch, but the fight seemed to leave its massive body as exhaustion took hold. Marcus examined the broken wing, careful not to cause additional pain. It wasn't beyond repair, but it would need proper medical attention. The eyes worried him more. The crystalline structures were unlike anything in Earth's biological catalog, and he doubted even the base's veterinary surgeon would know how to treat them. With considerable effort, Marcus managed to secure the Falcon's wings against its body with straps from his field kit and fashion a makeshift harness. The creature was surprisingly light for its size, its hollow bones and specialized musculature designed for flight in both atmosphere and vacuum. Still, it took all his strength to lift it partially onto his shoulders, dragging more than carrying it across the uneven terrain. The journey back to base was grueling. The storm hit halfway, pelting them with caustic orange rain that hissed against Marcus's protective gear. The Falcon remained eerily quiet, occasionally shuddering as the toxic drops found their way through his jacket to its sensitive feathers. By the time the perimeter lights of the base came into view, Marcus was stumbling with exhaustion, his shoulders burning from the weight. The sentry spotted him, and soon a small crowd had gathered at the gate, weapons raised. "Lieutenant Chen, what the hell is that?" Sergeant Rivera called out, her rifle trained on the bundle Marcus carried. "Medical emergency," Marcus gasped, pushing past them. "Need a containment unit, then medical supplies." Colonel Winters emerged from the command center, his weathered face darkening as he recognized what Marcus had brought into his base. "Lieutenant, stand down immediately." Marcus continued toward the medical bay, his legs threatening to give out. "Sir, with respect, this creature has intelligence value. The Arcturians wouldn't use them if they weren't important." Winters stepped into his path, forcing Marcus to stop. "That thing has killed dozens of our people, Lieutenant. It's a weapon, not a pet. I ordered you to terminate it." "It's blind, sir. No threat to anyone." Marcus met his commander's gaze steadily. "If we can rehabilitate it, learn how it works, maybe even use it." "Use it?" Winters scoffed. "These things bond to their Arcturian handlers. It would sooner tear your throat out than help us." The Falcon stirred against Marcus's shoulder, sensing the tension. Its massive talons flexed reflexively, tearing through the restraints. "Sir," Marcus said quietly, "the Arcturians left it to die. It's no use to them now. Give me 2 weeks. If I can't make progress, I'll terminate it myself." The colonel stared at him, then at the Falcon. A small crowd of soldiers had gathered, watching the standoff with interest. Finally, Winters stepped aside. 2 weeks, Lieutenant. It stays in containment, and you're solely responsible. 1 incident, and I'll have both your ranks." Marcus nodded, relief flooding through him. "Thank you, sir." The medical bay was already buzzing with activity as Marcus carried in his unusual patient. Dr. Eliza Nakamura, the base's chief medical officer, took one look at the Falcon and shook her head. "I'm a human doctor, Lieutenant, not a veterinarian, much less a xenobiologist. Please, Doc, just help me stabilize it." Marcus carefully lowered the Falcon onto an examination table. "I'll take responsibility for the rest." Nakamura sighed but began gathering supplies. "I can set the wing and provide pain management, but those eyes..." She peered at the shattered crystalline fragments. "I've never seen anything like them. The damage appears extensive." Together, they worked to clean and treat the Falcon's wounds, The creature remained surprisingly docile, perhaps understanding on some level that they were trying to help, or simply too weak to resist. Its wing was splinted, the worst lacerations sealed with medical adhesive, and a nutrient solution administered intravenously. "What will you do about its eyes?" Nakamura asked as they finished. Marcus gazed at the broken shards that still caught and refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. "I don't know yet, but I'll figure something out." A secure containment unit was set up in an unused storage bay. Marcus furnished it with soft bedding and perches at various heights, though he doubted the Falcon would be able to use them until its wing healed. A force field barrier allowed air circulation while preventing escape. That first night, Marcus slept on a cot beside the containment field, unwilling to leave the Falcon alone in strange surroundings. He woke frequently to the sound of it shuffling around, disoriented and distressed. Each time, he spoke softly until it settled, establishing a pattern that would continue in the days ahead. Word spread quickly through the base about Lieutenant Chen's strange project. Most gave the storage bay a wide berth, but a few curious souls stopped by to glimpse the legendary enemy biological weapon up close. The Falcon seemed to sense their presence, growing agitated when anyone besides Marcus approached. Marcus dedicated his off-duty hours to researching Arcturian biology from the limited information available in the base's database. The Falcon's SAF were closely guarded secrets, their exact nature classified even in stolen enemy files. What little he could find suggested they were semi-sentient, capable of complex problem-solving and navigation across vast distances of space without technological assistance. Their eyes were their most remarkable feature, living crystals that could perceive wavelengths across multiple dimensions, allowing them to track targets through shield harmonics and even predict short jumps through hyperspace. No wonder the Arcturians valued them so highly. No wonder they were so devastating against human forces. But how to heal such alien structures? Earth medicine offered no solutions, and Arcturian medical knowledge was beyond reach. On the third day, Specialist Zhang from engineering stopped by as Marcus was attempting to coax the Falcon to eat from his hand. "I heard about your project," Zhang said, keeping his distance from the field. "Thought this might help." He handed Marcus a datapad. "It's a spectrographic analysis of crystal formation under various conditions. Been working on it for shield harmonics, but biological crystals might follow similar principles." Marcus looked up, surprised by the offer. "Thanks. I've been hitting dead ends." Zhang shrugged. "My brother was a falconer back on Earth. Always had respect for raptors." He glanced at the alien creature. "Even ones from another star system." Small gestures of support like this became more common as days passed. Sergeant Rivera brought specialized feeding instruments from her hunting kit. Private Cooper, who'd lost his arm to an Arcturian scout ship, surprised everyone by volunteering his expertise in avian behavior from his pre-war conservation work. The Falcon's physical wounds began to heal, but its eyes remained dormant, the broken crystals neither regenerating nor falling away. It learned to track Marcus by sound and smell, turning its massive head to follow his movements around the containment area. It still refused food from anyone else, and would become dangerously agitated if Marcus was absent for too long. Colonel Winters visited on the 10th day, watching silently as Marcus cleaned the Falcon's feathers with a specialized solution developed by Dr. Nakamura. "2 more days, Lieutenant," the colonel reminded him. "I don't see much intelligence value here." Marcus continued his work, careful around the sensitive areas near the Falcon's eyes. "It's responding to commands now, sir. Simple ones, but it's learning. It's imprinted on you, Chen. That's what these creatures do. Doesn't mean it can help us defeat the Arcturians." The Falcon stirred, sensing the colonel's presence. It turned its head toward Winters and made a low rumbling sound deep in its chest. "It still doesn't like me," Winters observed dryly. "With respect, sir, you did want to kill it." Marcus removed his gloves. "I think there's more here than we understand. The wing is nearly healed. Give me another month to work with its eyes." Winters studied the Falcon, then Marcus. "You've become attached to it." "Dangerous, Lieutenant." "I've become invested in what it represents, sir. If the Arcturians can create biological systems this advanced, what else are they capable of? Understanding this creature could be key to understanding our enemy." The colonel seemed to weigh this argument. 2 more weeks. But I want progress reports. And it starts earning its keep. See if it can identify Arcturian communications or technology. Something concrete. After Winters left, Marcus leaned against the containment field, suddenly exhausted. The Falcon approached, moving with increasing confidence despite its blindness. He pressed its beak against the field near Marcus's hand. "Yeah, I know," Marcus said softly. "I'm in trouble if you don't start showing off soon." That night, working late with Zhang's crystallography data, Marcus had his first breakthrough. The damaged crystals in the Falcon's eyes responded to specific frequencies of light, vibrating faintly when exposed to the right wavelength. It wasn't regeneration, but it was something. Over the next few days, Marcus developed a treatment regimen, bathing the Falcon's eyes in precisely calibrated light while administering a nutrient solution rich in silicate compounds. The remaining crystal fragments began to stabilize, tiny facets reforming along their edges. "It won't be the same as before," Dr. Nakamura warned after examining the Falcon. "The original structure is too damaged. Whatever you're growing, it's something new." Marcus nodded, watching as the Falcon tilted its head toward the light source, seeming to crave the treatment. "As long as it gives him some kind of sight back." "Him?" Nakamura raised an eyebrow. Marcus smiled slightly. "Just a feeling. The database says they don't have genders like we understand them, but he seems like a him to me." Nakamura shook her head. "You've named it, haven't you?" "Icarus," Marcus admitted. "For flying too close to the sun." "Nephology? Really, Lieutenant?" Despite her tone, there was amusement in her eyes. "Just remember what happened to Icarus in the end." As the second 2-week deadline approached, Marcus intensified his efforts. The crystals in Icarus's eyes had formed new structures, smaller than the originals, but with a strange, opalescent quality. They seemed to catch light from angles that shouldn't be possible, refracting it in ways that made observers uncomfortable if they stared too long. Colonel Winters was less impressed. "It's still blind, Lieutenant. I don't see the progress you promised." Marcus had Icarus perched on a specially designed gauntlet that could support his weight. The Falcon's head swiveled toward Winters as he spoke, tracking him with uncanny accuracy. "He's not blind, sir. Watch." Marcus removed a small object from his pocket, a piece of Arcturian technology recovered from a downed ship. He placed it on a table across the room, then whispered to Icarus, "Find." The Falcon launched from the gauntlet with surprising grace, its heeled wing fully functional. It flew directly to the table, landed beside the Arcturian device, and tapped it precisely with its beak. Winters stared. "You can see the tech?" "Not exactly seeing, sir. The new crystal formations are sensing something about Arcturian energy signatures. He can identify their technology, their communications, possibly even their presence at a distance." The colonel's expression changed from skepticism to cautious interest. "How reliable?" 97% accuracy in controlled tests. "And improving daily." Marcus called Icarus back to his arm, rewarding him with a specialized treat. "He's mapped the entire base's power grid too. Can navigate by sensing energy flows." For the first time, Winters looked at the Falcon with something other than distrust. Practical applications? Reconnaissance. Early warning systems. Icarus can detect Arcturian technology at ranges well beyond our scanners. Marcus stroked the Falcon's feathers. "And he's loyal now. To us." "To you, Lieutenant," Winters corrected. "Make no mistake about that." The colonel granted an indefinite extension to the project, assigning Marcus to work with intelligence to develop ways to utilize Icarus's unique abilities. A larger habitat was constructed, allowing the Falcon freedom to fly within secure boundaries. Engineers developed a specialized harness with integrated communications that would allow Icarus to relay what he sensed back to human operators. The first field test came sooner than expected. Arcturian forces launched a surprise attack on a supply convoy, and conventional sensors gave only seconds of warning before enemy ships appeared. Marcus was ordered to deploy with Icarus, tasked with providing advance intelligence on enemy movements. As their transport approached the battlefield, Marcus felt a knot of anxiety. This would be Icarus's first exposure to combat since his injury, and the Falcon seemed to sense the tension, shifting restlessly on his perch. "I know," Marcus said quietly, checking the harness one final time, "but we need to know what you can do." When they reached the designated observation point, a high ridge overlooking the valley where human forces were engaging the Arcturians, Marcus released Icarus with a simple command: "Scout." The Falcon launched into the sky, powerful wings carrying him higher and faster than any Earth bird could fly. Through the comm link in the harness, Marcus could hear Icarus's heartbeat accelerate as he soared. "What's he doing, Lieutenant?" Captain Reeves from Intelligence asked, watching the Falcon disappear into the clouds. "His job," Marcus replied, eyes on the tactical display showing Icarus's position. "Give him time." Minutes passed with no contact. The battle below intensified, human forces taking heavy losses as Arcturian ships materialized from seemingly nowhere, striking and vanishing before defenses could lock on. Then the comms crackled to life with a series of high-pitched sounds. Icarus's call, modulated through the harness translator, the tactical display lit up with new information. Energy signatures, movement patterns, coordinates. "He's found something," Marcus said, excitement building. Feeding data to tactical now. The information streamed in, revealing what human sensors couldn't detect. Arcturian ships were using micro-jumps through hyperspace, appearing just long enough to attack before jumping again. But Icarus could see the distortions these jumps created before they happened, predicting where the enemy would materialize. Captain Reeves relayed the intel to the ground forces. Within minutes, human defenses adapted, positioning fire teams to target the exact coordinates where Arcturian ships would appear. The tide of battle began to turn. Icarus continued to circle high above, his new crystalline eyes perceiving patterns in reality itself, seeing the very fabric of space flex and distort under the Arcturians' manipulation. Through the neural interface in the harness, crude images formed in Marcus's mind, not visual images as humans understood them, but impressions of energy, motion, and dimensional variance. "They're retreating," Reeves announced finally, as the Arcturian signatures began to fade from the battlefield. "We've won." When Icarus returned to Marcus's gauntlet, the Falcon seemed different, more alert, more present. The crystalline formations in his eyes pulsed with inner light, processing information in ways not even their creators had intended. Word of Icarus's success spread rapidly through the command structure. What had begun as Marcus's personal rescue project was now officially designated Program Raptor, a new intelligence asset that could potentially change the course of the war. Colonel Winters personally debriefed Marcus after the battle. "Intelligence is calling this a game-changer, Lieutenant. HQ wants the Falcon transferred to Central Command for study." Marcus felt a chill run through him. "Sir, Icarus won't respond to anyone else. The bond, which is why you'll be transferred as well." Winters handed him new orders. "Effective immediately. You're reassigned to Special Projects Division. You and your bird are moving up in the world." The news should have been welcome recognition of his work, a promotion in all but name. Yet Marcus felt uneasy as he returned to Icarus's habitat. The Falcon was perched at the highest point, his crystalline eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Looks like we're being reassigned," Marcus told him, approaching slowly. "They're impressed with what you can do." Icarus tilted his head, those alien eyes seeming to look through Marcus rather than at him. There was something different in the Falcon's demeanor since the battle. A new awareness that was both fascinating and slightly unsettling. In the weeks that followed, Marcus and Icarus were relocated to a specialized facility deep within human territory. The habitat constructed for Icarus was magnificent, a vast enclosed space with variable gravity, atmospheric conditions, designed to maximize his comfort and abilities. A team of scientists and military personnel worked around the clock to study and utilize his unique perception. Marcus found himself both subject and researcher. His bond with Icarus, the key to unlocking the Falcon's potential. They developed a system of communication more sophisticated than the simple commands of their early days, a language of gestures, sounds, and impressions shared through the neural interface in Icarus's harness. Dr. Alana Sorensen, the lead scientist on Project Raptor, was particularly interested in how Icarus perceived reality. These crystal structures, she explained, examining scans of the Falcon's eyes. They're not just seeing light anymore. They're detecting variations in the quantum field, energy patterns, perhaps even temporal fluctuations. He sees things differently than before his injury, Marcus agreed. Sometimes, through the interface, I get glimpses. It's like seeing the world as made of currents and eddies, rather than solid objects. Sorensen nodded eagerly. The damage forced his brain to rewire, to interpret new types of input. What we're seeing is neuroplasticity on an unprecedented scale. She brought up a three-dimensional model of Icarus's brain activity. These regions here, they're processing information that has no analog in human perception. The practical applications of Icarus's abilities expanded daily. His capacity to detect Arcturian technology at vast distances made him invaluable for defensive operations. But it was his ability to perceive hyperspace distortions that truly transformed human strategy. For years, human vessels had been limited to established hyperspace routes, constrained by the need for fixed navigational beacons. The Arcturians, with their superior understanding of dimensional physics, could forge new paths at will, appearing where least expected. But Icarus could see these paths. Through the neural interface, he could convey the patterns of hyperspace to human navigators, revealing safe passages where none were thought to exist. The first test of this ability came 6 months after Program Raptor began. A critical human outpost in the Cygnus sector was under siege, cut off from supply lines by Arcturian blockades. Conventional routes were heavily guarded, making relief missions suicide runs. Marcus and Icarus were assigned to the relief carrier Solaris, tasked with finding an alternate approach. In the ship's navigation center, Marcus watched as Icarus perched before the holographic display, those crystalline eyes pulsing with inner light as he studied the star chart. "He's been quiet," observed Captain Torres, the Solaris's commander. "Are you sure this will work?" Marcus nodded, though his own doubts lingered. He needs time to process. The paths he sees aren't fixed like our mapped routes. After nearly an hour, Icarus suddenly unleashed a series of sharp calls. The neural interface activated, and Marcus gasped as impressions flooded his mind. Spatial coordinates, energy fluctuations, timing, sequences. "He's found something," Marcus announced, translating the information for the navigation team. "A fold in space-time, temporary but navigable. It will bring us out less than 10,000 kilometers from the outpost, behind the Arcturian line." Torres looked skeptical. "That's impossible. Our charts show nothing but dead space in that sector." "Because we can only map stable routes," Marcus explained. "This is different. A temporary pathway that forms and dissipates based on stellar activity. Icarus can see it forming." The captain hesitated, weighing the risk against the outpost's desperate situation. "If you're wrong, we'll materialize inside a star or tear ourselves apart in hyperspace." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I trust him." Torres nodded grimly. "Plot the course. We jump in 30 minutes. The hyperspace jump was unlike any Marcus had experienced. The ship shuddered violently as it entered the unmapped pathway, alarms blaring as systems struggled to compensate for the unusual dimensional stresses. In the navigation center, Icarus remained perfectly still, his eyes blazing with crystalline fire as he helped guide them through. When they emerged, the viewport revealed the besieged outpost directly ahead. With the Arcturian blockade vessels oriented away, their sensors focused on the expected approach vectors. "We did it," Torres breathed, staring at the tactical display. "They don't even know we're here yet." The element of surprise allowed the Solaris to break through the blockade and deliver critical supplies and reinforcements to the outpost. By the time the Arcturians realized what had happened, the human ship had already reversed course, using another of Icarus's discovered pathways to escape. News of the mission's success reached the highest levels of human command. General Yamamoto herself came to inspect Program Raptor, her weathered face impassive as she watched Icarus demonstrate his abilities. "Impressive," she acknowledged afterward, "but limited in scale. One bird can only be in one place at a time." Dr. Sorensen stepped forward eagerly. "We've been analyzing the crystalline structures in his eyes, General. With proper resources, We believe we could synthesize similar formations not as sophisticated as the biological version, but enough to create detection systems based on the same principles. Yamamoto's interest sharpened. How soon? 6 months for a prototype, a year for field deployment. You have 3 months, the general stated flatly. This technology could change the course of the war. As Program Raptor expanded into a full-scale weapons development initiative, Marcus found himself increasingly concerned about Icarus. The Falcon was subjected to more tests, more scans, more demands on his unique perception. Though never mistreated, he was viewed more as technology to be exploited than as a living being. Late one night, after a particularly grueling session mapping potential hyperspace pathways, Marcus found Icarus perched motionless in his habitat. Those crystalline eyes dimmed to a faint glow. "You did good today," Marcus said softly, approaching with a special Tritae synthetic compound that mimicked the Falcon's natural prey. Icarus didn't respond, didn't even turn toward Marcus as he normally would. Alarmed, Marcus entered the habitat, crossing to the perch. "Hey, what's wrong?" The Falcon remained still, only the slight rise and fall of his chest indicating life. Marcus reached out slowly to stroke the iridescent feathers. At his touch, Icarus finally stirred, turning those alien eyes toward him. The neural interface activated spontaneously, and Marcus staggered as impressions flooded his mind. Not the usual geometric patterns and energy signatures, but something deeper, more abstract. Emotions. Icarus was projecting emotions. Exhaustion, confusion, a sense of being pulled in too many directions. And beneath it all, a growing awareness of something vast and incomprehensible. Marcus braced himself against the perch, overwhelmed by the intensity of the connection. "What are you seeing?" he whispered. New images formed in his mind, not of hyperspace routes or enemy positions, but of boundaries between dimensions, the thin membrane separating reality from something other. And there were presences, entities moving through these boundaries, observing, influencing. The connection broke suddenly as Icarus pulled away, the crystalline eyes dimming again. Marcus stood there, shaken by what he'd glimpsed. This was beyond tactical advantage, beyond winning the war. Icarus was preceding something fundamental about the nature of reality itself. The next morning, Marcus requested a private meeting with Dr. Sorensen, sharing his experience with carefully chosen words. He omitted the more disturbing aspects of the vision, focusing instead on Icarus's apparent distress. "He's being pushed too hard," Marcus insisted. "His perception is evolving, becoming more complex. We need to slow down, give him time to adjust." Sorensen frowned, studying the latest brain scans. "These patterns here," she pointed to an area of intense neural activity. "They weren't present last week. His brain is continuing to adapt to the crystalline input, which is why we need to be careful. We don't know the long-term effects of this kind of neural rewiring, or the potential benefits," Sorensen countered. "Lieutenant, I understand your concern for the Falcon's well-being, but consider what's at stake. If he's perceiving interdimensional space as you describe, the scientific and strategic implications are enormous." Marcus felt frustration building. "He's not a machine, Doctor. He's a living creature with limits. A living weapon," Sorensen corrected gently. "Created by the Arcturians for war, just as we've created our own weapons. The difference is, we're getting him purpose beyond destruction." The argument was interrupted by an urgent summons from General Yamamoto. When they arrived at the command center, the atmosphere was tense. Officers moving with controlled urgency, as tactical displays showed unusual activity along the front lines. "We've lost contact with 3 outposts in the past 6 hours, Yamamoto informed them without preamble. No distress signals, no signs of battle. They simply went dark. Marcus studied the display, noting the positions of the affected outposts. "Arcturian cloaking technology?" "We thought so at first," a senior intelligence officer replied. "But our sensors detect no Arcturian signatures in the vicinity, and the pattern of disappearances doesn't match their usual tactics." Yamamoto turned to Marcus. "We need your Falcon's eyes. Whatever's happening out there, it's invisible to our technology." Within hours, the Solaris was again jumping to the edge of the affected sector, a specialized observation pod attached to its hull. Inside the pod, Marcus prepared Icarus for the mission, fitting him with the latest version of the neural interface harness. "We're looking for anything unusual," Marcus explained, knowing that Icarus understood far more than simple commands now. Changes in space-time, energy signatures, anything that might explain the missing outposts. The Falcon regarded him with those crystalline eyes, now pulsing with a complex rhythm of inner light. Through the interface, Marcus received a brief impression recognition, determination. Captain Torres's voice came through the comm system. "We're approaching the last known position of Outpost Sigma. Prepare for deployment." The observation pod separated from the Solaris, its specialized engines allowing for independent movement. Marcus guided it toward the coordinates of the vanished outpost, all sensors active and recording. "Anything?" he asked Icarus, who perched at the viewport, head moving in a scanning pattern. Initially, there was nothing. The space where Outpost Sigma should have been contained only scattered debris, consistent with sudden structural failure rather than attack. No radiation signatures, no weapons residue, nothing to indicate what had happened. Then Icarus's demeanor changed. His feathers bristled, and he unleashed a series of sharp, warning calls. Through the interface, Marcus received a flood of impressions of distortion in space, not like the hyperspace pathways they'd navigated before, but something colder, more alien. "He's found something," Marcus reported to the Solaris. "Sending coordinates now." The pod's instruments detected nothing unusual at the specified location, but Marcus trusted Icarus's perception. He maneuvered closer, recording everything despite the lack of visible phenomena. Icarus's agitation increased as they approached, his crystalline eyes blazing with such intensity that Marcus had to shield his own eyes. Through the interface came not just impressions now, but a coherent warning. "Danger. Retreat." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Full reverse thrust," he ordered the pod's computer, pulling away from the coordinates. Just as they began to withdraw, space itself seemed to ripple at the spot Icarus had identified. For a brief moment, reality appeared to fold inward, creating a visual distortion like looking through warped glass. Then, it stabilized, returning to apparent normalcy. "Did you see that?" Marcus demanded of the Solaris. "Negative," Torres replied. "Our sensors detected a minor gravitational anomaly, nothing visual." Icarus was projecting intense distress now, his mind filled with images of vast, cold intelligences, moving through dimensions adjacent to normal space. Not Arcturians. Something else. Something that had been drawn to this sector by the hyperspace activity of the war, by the constant tearing of dimensional barriers as ships jumped in and out. Something that had become curious about the creatures fighting here. The revelation shook Marcus to his core. If Icarus's perception was accurate, he had no reason to doubt it then. The disappearances weren't acts of war, but specimens being collected, studied, by entities that operated on a scale humans couldn't comprehend. "We need to return to base immediately," Marcus transmitted to the Solaris. "I have critical information about the disappearances." "Acknowledged," Torres replied. Retrieval sequence initiated. As the observation pod docked with the carrier, Marcus couldn't shake the sense of dread that had settled over him. Icarus remained agitated, those crystalline eyes now pulsing with an urgent rhythm, as they caught glimpses of something beyond human perception. In the Solaris's briefing room, Marcus struggled to convey what Icarus had shown him. The senior officers listened with expressions ranging from skepticism to alarm as he described entities existing in adjacent dimensional space, drawn by the constant hyperspace activity of the war. "You're suggesting some kind of interdimensional predator?" Admiral Reyes asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Not exactly predators," Marcus clarified. "More like researchers. Scientists. They're studying us, collecting specimens to understand what we are and how we function." Captain Torres frowned. "Based solely on impressions from the Falcon? Lieutenant, with respect, we need more concrete evidence before reporting something this unprecedented to high command." Marcus hesitated, then activated his neural interface tablet, projecting the recorded data from his connection with Icarus. The three-dimensional display showed energy patterns and spatial distortions that human instruments had failed to detect. "Our sensors couldn't see this," he explained, But it's there. Icarus perceives it directly through his crystalline structures. And there's more. He manipulated the display, revealing complex mathematical sequences. These aren't random patterns. There's organization here, intelligence. Admiral Reyes studied the display with growing concern. If you're right, Lieutenant, we're facing something far beyond our understanding. Something potentially more dangerous than the Arcturians. Or potentially an ally, Marcus suggested. We don't know their intentions. They might be as curious about us as we would be about them. The Admiral's expression hardened. History suggests that when advanced civilizations encounter less developed ones, the outcome rarely favors the latter. We need to understand this threat before it understands us. Orders came through from High Command within hours. The Solaris was to return to Earth immediately, bringing Icarus and all related data for comprehensive analysis. The war with the Arcturians suddenly seemed less pressing in light of this new development. During the journey back, Marcus spent most of his time with Icarus, attempting to learn more about the entities the Falcon had perceived. Through the neural interface, he received fragmented impressions, vast intelligences that existed primarily in dimensions humans couldn't access, with only minimal presence in normal space-time. They see our reality as flat, Marcus tried to explain to Dr. Sorensen, who had joined them on the return journey. Like we might see a drawing on paper. They can interact with it, but it's just a small part of their existence. Sorensen looked troubled. And the hyperspace technology we've been using? It creates ripples in their environment, draws their attention. Marcus stroked Icarus's feathers gently. The war has been like a beacon, announcing our presence. Could they be the reason for the Arcturians' aggression? Sorensen wondered. Perhaps they encountered these entities before we did. The possibility hadn't occurred to Marcus. It would explain their obsession with hyperspace technology, their biological adaptations like Icarus. They might have been preparing defenses against something we didn't even know existed. As they approached Earth, Icarus became increasingly restless. His crystalline eyes now shimmered with complex patterns of light, even when at rest. And through the interface, Marcus sensed a growing urgency in his thoughts. What is it? Marcus asked, during their final night aboard the Solaris. What are you trying to show me? The neural connection deepened, and Marcus gasped as his mind filled with new images Earth itself, surrounded by thin, almost invisible distortions in space. The entities had already arrived, drawn by the return of human vessels from the front lines. They were watching, waiting, their curiosity aroused by this new world. They're here, Marcus whispered, cold fear climbing his spine. Icarus projected confirmation, along with something else's solution. Complex mathematical sequences that, when implemented, would create specific harmonic patterns in hyperspace. Not pathways for travel, but boundaries. Warnings. A language the entities would understand. When the Solaris reached Earth orbit, they were met by an unprecedented security detail. High Command had mobilized every available resource to study the potential threat. Icarus was transferred to a specialized facility within the Hyperspace Research Division, with Marcus accompanying him as primary handler and interpreter. The Falcon's revelation about the entity's presence near Earth created near panic among the senior leadership. Emergency meetings were convened, defense strategies debated, evacuation plans considered. The war with the Arcturians was placed on indefinite hold as humanity faced this new, incomprehensible threat. Through it all, Icarus remained their only window into understanding what they faced. His crystalline eyes, once considered merely biological weapons, now represented humanity's most valuable asset, the ability to perceive the entities directly. Dr. Sorensen led a team working to replicate this perception artificially. If we can create sensors based on the same crystalline principles, she explained during a high-level briefing, we might be able to detect and monitor these entities without relying solely on the Falcon. Age and defenses? General Yamamoto demanded. Can this perception be weaponized? Sorensen looked uncomfortable. Theoretically, yes. But weaponizing against something we barely understand is exactly what we need to do, the general finished firmly. If these entities have been responsible for our outpost disappearances, they're already hostile. Marcus stepped forward, unable to remain silent. Sir, with respect, we don't know that. The disappearances could be their equivalent of taking samples, not an act of aggression. Tell that to the families of the missing personnel, Lieutenant, Yamamoto replied coldly. The debate continued for weeks, as scientists and military leaders grappled with the implications of Icarus's discovery. Meanwhile, Marcus worked tirelessly with the Falcon to refine their understanding of the harmonic patterns that might serve as communication. It's like a fence, he explained to Dr. Sorensen as they analyzed the mathematical sequences. Not to keep them out physically, but to establish boundaries they'll recognize. To say this space is occupied, please respect our presence. Sorensen nodded slowly. The dimensional demarcation line. Elegant, really. And non-threatening, Marcus emphasized. We can't fight these entities, not directly. But we might be able to communicate, to reach an understanding. The first test of this theory came sooner than expected. Monitoring stations in lunar orbit detected unusual gravitational anomalies consistent with the patterns Icarus had identified near the missing outposts. The entities were approaching Earth more boldly. In a desperate gamble, High Command authorized the deployment of modified hyperspace beacons around Earth and its colonies. These beacons were programmed with Icarus's harmonic patterns, designed to create a dimensional fence that the entities would recognize as a deliberate communication. Marcus and Icarus were stationed on the command carrier Prometheus to monitor the entity's response. The Falcon's crystalline eyes blazed with unprecedented intensity as the beacons activated, creating ripples through dimensions that human instruments could barely detect. For 3 tense days, nothing seemed to change. The gravitational anomalies continued, occasionally intensifying near major population centers. High Command grew increasingly restless, pressure mounting to attempt more aggressive responses. Then, on the 4th day, Icarus let out a piercing cry, unlike anything Marcus had heard before. Through the neural interface came a flood of new impressions: acknowledgement, curiosity, response. The entities had recognized the harmonic patterns as communication and were replying in kind. They understand, Marcus reported excitedly. They're establishing their own boundary patterns, matching our harmonics. It's working. The next hours were a flurry of activity as Icarus interpreted the entities' responses, translating alien concepts into terms humans could comprehend. It wasn't language as humans understood it, but a complex exchange of mathematical and spatial relationships that conveyed essential meanings. What emerged was both reassuring and humbling. The entities had indeed been responsible for the disappeared outposts, but not out of malice. They existed in a state of consciousness so different from human understanding that concepts like aggression or territory had little meaning to them. Their interaction with human space had been driven by something akin to scientific curiosity. More surprisingly, they had been aware of the Arcturians for centuries. The war that had consumed human resources and lives for years was, to these entities, merely the latest chapter in a recurring pattern. Species discovering hyperspace technology inevitably drew their attention, and their presence inevitably created fear and conflict among those species. They're offering to withdraw, Marcus explained to the assembled leadership, as Icarus projected understanding through their connection. To respect the boundaries we've established. But they're also offering something more: knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Yamamoto asked skeptically. Hyperspace physics beyond anything we or the Arcturians have developed, ways to travel without creating the dimensional distortions that attracted them in the first place. Marcus paused, then added, and they're suggesting that this knowledge might help end the war. The revelation transformed humanity's understanding of the conflict. Armed with the entity's insights, Earth scientists developed new approaches to hyperspace travel that didn't tear at the fabric between dimensions. Diplomatic overtures were made to the Arcturians, offering to share this knowledge in exchange for peace. To everyone's surprise, the Arcturians responded positively. It emerged that they had encountered the entities generations earlier and had been developing biological systems like Icarus specifically to detect and avoid them. The war had been partly driven by competition for safe hyperspace routes, with each side believing the other was collaborating with the dimensional entities. As peace negotiations progressed, Icarus became a symbol of the new understanding between species. His unique perception, born from injury and healing, represented a bridge between different ways of seeing reality. The crystalline formations in his eyes continued to evolve, growing more complex as they processed information across multiple dimensions. For Marcus, the journey had transformed him from a soldier to a diplomat, from a rescuer to a student. His bond with Icarus had opened doors of perception he had never imagined possible. "What do you see now?" he asked the Falcon one evening, as they stood at the viewport of the new interspecies research station, watching stars that no longer represented battlefields. Through their neural connection, Icarus shared glimpses of a universe far more vast and intricate than humans had ever suspected. Dimensions folded within dimensions, intelligences of all kinds navigating a complex tapestry of reality. And boundaries not walls, but meeting places where different modes of existence could communicate and learn from each other. The military wanted to create more like Icarus, to develop an entire program of enhanced biological sensors. But the unique combination of Arcturian engineering, combat damage, and Marcus's healing touch couldn't be replicated. Icarus remained one of a kind, a living reminder that sometimes the most valuable perception comes through brokenness made whole in unexpected ways. As for the Falcon himself, he never bonded with another handler. Though he worked with other humans, and eventually with Arcturian specialists, his primary loyalty remained with Marcus, the man who had seen value where others saw only damage, the man who had given him the chance to heal into something new. Together, they continued to explore the boundaries between dimensions, serving as intermediaries between humans, Arcturians, and the entities that existed beyond normal spacetime. Their partnership, forged in war and tempered by discovery, became the foundation for a new era of interspecies cooperation. And on quiet evenings, when the demands of diplomacy and research subsided, they would fly together, Marcus in a specialized craft, Icarus soaring beside him on powerful wings. The Falcon's crystalline eyes would catch starlight and transform it, seeing pathways and possibilities invisible to others, reminding them both that sometimes true vision comes only after blindness, that healing can create something more valuable than what was lost, that sometimes the most important things can only be seen through eyes that have been broken and remade. 3 years after the peace accords were signed, a new research station was established at the coordinates where Marcus had first found Icarus. The moon that had once been a battlefield was now a neutral zone, dedicated to the study of interdimensional physics and cross-species biology. During the dedication ceremony, Marcus watched as Icarus perched on a specially designed monument, a crystalline structure that caught and refracted light in patterns similar to the Falcon's eyes. Arcturian and human scientists mingled below, sharing knowledge that would have been unthinkable during the war. Dr. Sorensen, now director of interspecies research, joined him at the observation window. "Still hard to believe sometimes," she commented, "that all of this began with one injured bird." Marcus smiled, watching as Icarus launched himself from the monument, wings catching the alien sunlight. Not just a bird, a different way of seeing. Through their neural connection, faint but ever-present, came Icarus's response, not in words but in impressions of flight, of freedom, of boundaries crossed and new horizons discovered, of eyes that had been shattered but now saw truths no single species could perceive alone, of a universe where blindness was merely a doorway to a different kind of sight. As Icarus soared higher, his crystalline eyes captured dimensions beyond human perception, glimpsing the entities that now observed with benign curiosity rather than interference. The Falcon had become a bridge between worlds, between ways of seeing and understanding reality itself. And Marcus, watching from below, knew that their journey was far from over, that beyond the peace they had helped forge lay greater discoveries, deeper connections with the cosmic tapestry they had only begun to understand. That sometimes, healing was not about restoring what was lost, but about creating something entirely new. Something that could see what no one human or alien had ever seen before. Colonel Winters, now Ambassador Winters to the Arcturian Confederation, approached Marcus as the ceremony concluded. The years had added silver to his hair, but had not diminished his commanding presence. "Chen," he acknowledged with a nod, his gaze following Icarus's flight pattern. "I've been meaning to tell you something for a long time. Marcus turned to face his former commander. "Sir, you were right. That day you brought that broken bird into my base." Winters shook his head slightly. "I was certain you were making a mistake, wasting resources on a lost cause. To be fair, sir, I had no idea what would come of it either. But you saw potential where the rest of us saw only a broken weapon." Winters extended his hand. "That kind of vision is rare, Lieutenant. Or should I say, Director Chen." Marcus accepted the handshake, still adjusting to his new title as Director of Falcon Communication Programs. "Just doing my job, sir." "Your job was to follow orders and terminate a wounded enemy asset," Winters reminded him with the ghost of a smile. "Fortunately for all of us, you were terrible at that particular aspect of your job." As they spoke, Icarus completed his ceremonial flight and returned to Marcus, landing on his specially designed gauntlet with practiced ease. The Falcon's crystalline eyes pulsed with complex patterns as he regarded Winters no longer with the wariness of their early encounters, but with something approaching recognition. Through the neural interface, Marcus sensed Icarus's impression of the mana mind, once rigid with fear and duty, now expanded through experience and understanding. Much like the Falcon himself, Winters had been transformed by circumstances, his perception altered by what he had witnessed. "He sees much more than we realize, doesn't he?" Winters asked quietly. Marcus nodded. "More than I can fully comprehend, even with the interface. It's like trying to describe color to someone who's never seen it. And yet you bridge that gap better than anyone, hence your new appointment." Winters gestured to the research station behind them. "They want to expand the program, find more like him." "There aren't more like him," Marcus replied. "The Arctarians created hundreds of Falcons, but Icarus is unique. His perception evolved through damage and healing in ways they never intended. Sometimes the most valuable tools are the broken ones," Winters observed. "The ones we have to repair in ways that create something new." The statement struck Marcus as profoundly true, not just of Icarus, but of the peace they had forged. The war had broken both species, human and Arctarian, forcing them to heal in new configurations, to see each other and the universe differently. As night fell on the alien moon, lights activated throughout the research station, casting prismatic reflections through the crystalline architecture. Arctarian technology merged with human design, creating spaces where both species could work comfortably side by side. In his private quarters, Marcus removed Icarus's harness, allowing the Falcon to rest on his custom perch. Without the neural interface, their communication was limited to gestures and vocal cues, but years of partnership had created understanding that transcended technology. "Big day tomorrow," Marcus told him, preparing a nutrient bath for the Falcon's crystalline ISA maintenance routine they had developed years ago. "The Arctarian science delegation wants to run new tests on your perception of the upper dimensional boundaries." Icarus tilted his head in what Marcus had come to recognize as agreement. The Falcon understood far more human speech than anyone had anticipated, his intelligence expanded by his unique sensory input. As Marcus applied the nutrient solution with a specially designed applicator, he noticed new formations developing along the edges of the crystalline structures. Tiny facets that caught light in ways he hadn't observed before. "Still evolving," he murmured, making a mental note to document the changes. "Still becoming something new." That night, as Marcus drifted toward sleep, the neural interface on his nightstand activated spontaneously. Though not wearing the receiver, he felt the familiar sensation of Icarus reaching for his mind, projecting images and impressions with unusual urgency. He saw the research station from above, then beyond, his perspective expanding to encompass the moon, the planetary system, and finally the dimensional boundaries that separated normal space from the realm of the entities. And there, at the intersection of realities, something new was forming, a convergence of energies unlike anything Icarus had shown him before. Marcus sat up, fully awake now. "What is it? What are you seeing?" The impression intensified, sense of imminent arrival, of presence gathering at the boundaries. Not the entities they had come to know, but something else, something older, something that had noticed the communication between dimensions and had become curious. When Marcus reported the vision to Dr. Sorensen the next morning, She immediately convened the research team. Sensors throughout the station were recalibrated to search for the phenomenon Icarus had perceived, though most scientists remained skeptical that their instruments could detect something so far beyond normal parameters. "If the Falcon is right," Sorensen said, studying the neural interface recordings, "we may be on the verge of contact with yet another form of intelligence, something that even the interdimensional entities consider significant. Or dangerous," Marcus suggested. Icarus conveyed a sense of anticipation mixed with caution, as if this new presence represents unknown potential. For 3 days, they waited and watched. Icarus spent hours in the observation dome, those crystalline eyes fixed on empty space that, to him, was apparently filled with meaningful patterns. The Arcturian scientists joined the vigil, bringing their own biological sensors, simpler versions of the Falcon's abilities, but still capable of detecting quantum fluctuations invisible to human perception. On the 4th day, it happened. Every instrument in the station registered a momentary surge of energy across all frequencies. The artificial gravity fluctuated briefly, and communications experienced a 3-second interruption. In the observation dome, Icarus unleashed a cry that seemed to resonate at frequencies beyond normal hearing. Through the neural interface, Marcus experienced a moment of connection so profound that he fell to his knees. Not just with Icarus this time, but with something vast and ancient, a consciousness that existed across dimensions and perceived reality as a unified whole, rather than separate planes. When he could speak again, Marcus struggled to translate the experience into words. "It wasn't communicating with us," he told the assembled team. "It was acknowledging us, recognizing our evolution toward perceptions beyond our original limitations." "Was it the creator of the entities?" an Arcturian scientist asked, her translator rendering the complex clicking language into flat human speech. Marcus shook his head. "Not creator, more like ancestor, something that had evolved beyond the forms we've been interacting with, something that exists primarily as consciousness rather than energy or matter." Dr. Sorensen looked troubled. "And it's interested in us, in this station, in the connections we're forming, between species, between dimensions." Marcus gazed at Icarus, who had grown calm after the encounter, those crystalline eyes pulsing with a steady, harmonious rhythm. "It perceives our growing understanding as significant, a step in an evolutionary process it has observed many times before." The implications were staggering. Both human and Arcturian scientists worked frantically to analyze the recorded data, searching for patterns that might help them understand what they had experienced. But the most valuable insights continued to come through Icarus, whose perception had been fundamentally altered by the contact. Through the neural interface, he projected new understanding not just of interdimensional physics, but of consciousness itself. The crystalline structures in his eyes had somehow resonated with the ancient entity, absorbing concepts that transcended conventional knowledge. "It's like he downloaded information directly," Marcus explained, trying to convey the flood of impressions he received from the Falcon. "Not data as we understand it, but principles, ways of perceiving that alter reality through the act of perception itself." Over the following months, these principles gradually took form as Icarus helped translate them into terms humans and Arcturians could comprehend. They led to breakthroughs in hyperspace navigation, consciousness transfer, and energy manipulation that transformed both civilizations. The research station expanded into a thriving colony, a neutral zone where humans and Arcturians worked side by side to explore the knowledge Icarus had accessed. New technologies emerged that healed the damage of war, restored ecosystems, and extended lifespans. The enemies of yesterday became partners in an evolutionary journey neither would have discovered alone. Through it all, Marcus remained Icarus's primary bond, the connection between Falcon and humanity that had started with a simple act of compassion on a battlefield. Though other handlers were trained to work with him, Icarus would share his deepest perceptions only with the man who had seen value in his brokenness. 10 years after their first encounter, as they stood together on an observation platform watching the inauguration of the first true interdimensional vessel, a ship that, quote, could traverse the boundaries between realities without disrupting them, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Did you know?" he asked the Falcon softly. "When I found you that day, broken and blind, did you somehow know what you would become?" Icarus turned toward him, those crystalline eyes now containing universes of perception beyond human understanding. Through their neural connection came not an answer, but an impression of patterns unfolding according to their nature, of damage creating openings for new growth, a vision that required breaking to evolve. And beneath it all, the simple truth that had started everything. Sometimes, healing wasn't about restoring what was lost, but about discovering what could be found only through brokenness. That true sight often began with blindness. But the most profound connections formed when conventional barriers failed. As the new ship activated its interdimensional drive, creating a shimmering gateway between realities, Icarus spread his massive wings in what seemed like salute. The crystalline formations in his eyes glowed with inner light, preceding pathways and possibilities invisible to everyone else. Everyone except Marcus, who through their unique bond, caught glimpses of what the Falcon saw, a universe of infinite connections, where every broken thing contained the seed of new perception. Where healing wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Where what had once been a weapon of war had become a bridge between worlds. And where a soldier who had defied orders to save a blind alien Falcon had, in doing so, helped both their species learn to truly see.